Hey everyone, Giovanna here with Flow State Financials, and I wanted to make a video to talk about something that is on my mind a lot, and that is the debate between renting versus buying a home. As someone who lives in a very high cost of living city, San Francisco, this is something that has been on my mind a lot. And I've really had to do my own analyses and deep mindset work to change the way that I think about this. It's so common to be pushed this narrative that buying this beautiful big home is the American dream. And I think it's really important to remember that, like personal finance, the decision to own a home is deeply, deeply personal. We all have different goals, different families, and I just think it's important to check in on what you really want for your financial future. And this is not at all to say that buying a home is bad by any means. It can be an incredible wealth building tool, and there are some amazing experts and voices in this space. And I will share some of those links below so you can check them out and get educated as well. But what I also do want to point out is that this might not be for everyone, and that is okay. For a long time, I struggled deeply with the fact that owning a home in San Francisco felt so far away, like such an unattainable goal. And that really led me to feel bad about myself, made me kind of feel like a failure. And this not only affected me emotionally, but it made me view my city differently. I started to feel resentful about living here rather than enjoying all of the beauty and the culture that it offers. And I think it's a real shame to make yourself think that you are doing something wrong or that you are failing. I had to really zoom out a bit and look at my investments. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in net worth. I started businesses that I'm really proud of. And most importantly, I have relationships that I deeply care about. And it took this shift in thinking to remind myself that owning a home is not the only indicator of success, and it definitely is not the way that I want to define myself and my self-worth. And again, we are all so different. I realize that I really value flexibility. I like to travel, and having a small apartment that I can just lock up and leave when I want to has been really great for my personal lifestyle. On the other hand, maybe you have a family and you want your kids to feel grounded and safe and in a good school district. In that case, you might focus more on building a home that fits your needs. So at the end of the day, what I want for you is to work towards goals that you actually want to achieve. And I think an amazing way to help with that is to do actual analyses. Look at the numbers, and I will show you my favorite rent versus buy calculator and how you can plug in different figures to just see long-term possibilities and help you make a decision that works best for you. I also think it's really important to look at these numbers to understand all of the upfront costs with buying, all of the maintenance and expenses that you should really plan to be saving for in your home buying and owning journey. I think it's important to remember too that just because someone has a fancy, expensive house does not mean that they are rich. You do not know what is going behind the scenes, maybe the massive mortgage that they have, the insane monthly payment that might bring you anxiety to cover. And if you are someone who is renting and living way below your means and investing all of that money that you are saving, then you are crushing it as well. So, with that, I think this is just taking a realistic and mindful approach to considering one of the biggest decisions in our life without the need to compare ourselves to others or make us feel less than. And I think it is just so important to be responsible with this, really look at our numbers, understand what we can afford, save up for these goals so that we are set up for success. I will also note that you don't need to buy the picture perfect house. You can buy in a way that is both your home and a great investment. Again, I will link my favorite expert voices below because they will explain all of these things much better than I can. And I really highly encourage you to check them out because they have been so helpful in my personal journey and rethinking my real estate approach. But just to give you some examples, maybe you buy a house that's cheaper but needs a little bit of work and you renovate it yourself. You do a little live-in flip to build equity using your own hands. Maybe you buy a multi-unit property like a duplex and you live on one side and rent out the other to help offset your mortgage. Or maybe you house hack and buy a house that has extra rooms and rent them out to roommates. There are so many options and methods that you can take. And again, this is just to get us to think a little bit more critically about our goals, how we want to get there, and how we might use one of our biggest investments to let us build the life that we actually want and not just listen to the norms or comparing ourselves to other people. Okay, so let's check out a rent versus buy calculator. So you can just Google rent versus buy calculator and several options will come up. But one that I really like is this one from NerdWallet. And again, I will link it below. If you're curious, there's also one on calculator.net. It looks like this. New York Times has a really cool one. So again, find whichever one just looks best to you. And again, we all have different circumstances. I put in numbers that reflect my current status in life. I have a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco, which we all know is a very high cost of living city. So my rent is $2,750 per month. And I know to a lot of you that might sound crazy. I have struggled with that as well. But there are a few things that I try to remind myself of. One, I don't need a car here. I rely on walking, public transportation, and the occasional Uber or Lyft. Two, my other costs are very low. I have a very small renter's insurance payment that I pay every month. And also, being in an apartment building means that my water and trash are all covered. So these are not utility expenses that I am incurring on a regular basis. Also, California is prone to a lot of natural disasters. It is really scary to think about the fires and the earthquakes. So, the fact that I don't have to worry about property insurance is honestly a blessing to me. And finally, this is important. San Francisco is a very tenant-friendly city. I have lived in apartments for years where I did not have a single rent hike. I feel very protected as a tenant here, which has contributed to my mindset shift and realization that renting here actually isn't bad. So, anyways, let's move on. In addition to the rent, I have my renter's insurance here. I did not have to pay a broker fee to get this apartment. And even though sometimes I go years without a rent increase, just to be conservative, I will put a 2% annual rent increase here. Now, let's say I was considering buying and wanted to compare my current one-bedroom apartment to something on the market that's currently on sale. So I found this unit as an example. It is in my same neighborhood. It is nicely renovated, and my apartment is as well. It's one bed, one bath, and around the same size as my current apartment. You can see it is $695,000, which is a little bit crazy, and that is just the listing price. So we don't know what it might actually sell for. So it could be more, it could be less. We'll see what happens. And if you scroll down a bit, you can see here that the HOA fee is $568 per month. Okay, so now that we have target unit, let's go ahead and plug in these numbers. So I will put the purchase price of $695,000 here. And let's say that I want to put a 20% down payment. So that would be $139,000. Let's assume a 30-year loan term. And I put in 6.5% interest rate for now. And again, there are upfront costs and ongoing costs with buying, right? So let's consider those things here. I estimated at a 3% for closing costs, a 1% property tax rate, and then I did homeowners insurance of $1,000 a year. This might be really low. Honestly, you will have to get quotes from insurance providers to get an accurate picture. But my thought is that the HOA should probably cover a lot of the insurance. So this would be just extra insurance on top of that. For additional utility costs, I put 100. Again, I don't pay for water or trash right now, so those would likely be things that I'll need to add in. And then I estimated 1% for home repairs and maintenance on a yearly basis. Again, I might not be spending this amount every year, but I would want to be prepared in the event that we get hit with a big assessment or something needs to be fixed in the building. And lastly, I'm estimating a home appreciation of 3% per year. Now, this additional information is super important. Here you'll see annual rate of return. And if you click on this, you'll see that it's the amount you earn from money you save in a bank, stocks, bonds, or other forms of investments. We use this to estimate opportunity cost. So, what this is saying is, let's say I take this big down payment that I would have had to put down for the condo, and instead I invest it in the stock market, and I'm getting a 7% annual rate of return. Well, that money will grow over time. So, that is the opportunity cost of buying versus using that money to invest in other methods. And then here you can put in your tax rate, your capital gains tax rate, and just a general inflation rate, and we'll keep that as 3%. So now we can see that according to these numbers, renting will always cost less, and I might save over $2,000 per month. And you can see here how the rent versus buy chart changes over the years, but the trend is that buying, which is the green line, will always be more expensive than renting, which is the blue line. And you can dig a little bit deeper down here, looking at the initial costs, the recurring costs, the opportunity costs, and net proceeds. So for me, seeing this just helped me feel a little less crazy, right? I decided that I am not going to stress myself out right now with thinking that I'm a failure for not owning my own condo, my own home. And it's going to be different for everyone, right? If you are in a lower cost of living city and you find that buying actually makes a lot more sense than renting, then that is amazing for you. And again, it's not to discourage you from buying. If anything, seeing this in the opposite direction might encourage you to start saving for that down payment because you see the long-term growth and wealth building potential that buying in your city might provide to you. So we are all different. We are all in different circumstances. And I think just seeing numbers can really help us get out of our feelings and into the more logical elements of these big life decisions. And then you can play around with these numbers to calculate different scenarios. So let's say in a few years, I decide to start a family and I'm debating a three-bedroom apartment versus a three-bedroom house. You can just tweak these numbers and see how that might change the renting versus buying calculation. So I'm just totally making up numbers here, but let's say I find a three-bedroom apartment that is instead $4,000 a month. Let's say the renter's insurance goes up a bit to $20 a month. It's usually pretty cheap. We'll keep everything else the same, no broker fee, rent increase is the same. And then let's look at buying. So houses in San Francisco are insane. I have certainly seen three-bedroom homes that are well over $1 million. So let's say that we find one that is $1.5 million. We'll still keep that 20% down payment, the loan term, and interest rate as well. Let's say that our closing cost and property tax rate is the same, but now that it's a house, there will likely be no HOA, so we can take that out. But let's say that our homeowner's insurance goes up to 1%, give or take. Again, just kind of playing with numbers here. Now that we're looking at a house, utilities might be higher, so let's increase this a bit to maybe $200. And then we will keep everything else the same. So the 1% for repairs, the selling cost, home appreciation, rate of return, and all of the taxes. And the big thing will be home appreciation here, right? We have seen periods of time where homes appreciate drastically in a very short time span. So this will be huge. Of course, you might buy a house in the right place at the right time and it can appreciate drastically. Or again, maybe you renovate while you're living there. You get your hands dirty and do a live-in flip and build in that appreciation yourself, right? So this, can be up to tweaking and interpretation based on the work that you want to put into your house and the market in which you're buying. So this might be pretty hard to predict, but let's say that your home appreciates at 7% a year. Well, you can see how this would then change. But even in this scenario, if your home appreciates 7% a year, with these numbers, you'll see that renting will still cost less. Again, these are made up numbers just based on some things that I've seen in the past. So it's just made to be used as an example, right? And it's important to remind you again that this is just assuming that you buy the house, you live in it yourself. You're not, having roommates come in, paying you rent. It's not a duplex or triplex where you are getting rental income from other units. Those are amazing ways to buy a home, own property, and also use it as an investment vehicle. So this is totally just for the people like me who live in these expensive cities and feel down on yourself over time that you're making the wrong choice or you're not getting ahead in life. So I hope this was helpful for you as you start to consider your potential home buying journey, or if you just needed a little reminder that there are a lot of ways to build wealth and it's important to check in on what you actually want and align yourself with those goals. And you do not have to feel like a failure if you are renting by choice. And I will also say you can rent in the city that you live and buy an investment property in a different city or a different state. There are also amazing books about long distance investing, and I will link those below as well. I also made some blog posts about these topics, so I will link those below if you are interested in reading those as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I am always rooting you on as you crush those financial goals. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.